great. It's an honor to be here. Women's Entrepreneurs Online. I had no idea what to expect coming in. And I don't know, why did you guys like arrange yourselves in a catwalk fashion? Like, was this on purpose? Like, should I do a turn? So, what are we here to talk about? Social marketing. Who's got a website attached to their business? Oh, come on, this should be 100%, right? Like, who doesn't? Who's decided that they're going to go offline with this, and why are you here? We all have to be online today. We build websites, but building a website isn't enough, right? You build it and they come. No, not really. Nobody comes. You watch your analytics and the traffic's like nothing. Occasionally somebody accidentally stumbles across you somehow. So you've got to get out there. And, well, one way to do that, of course, is to go and spend a lot of money on advertising. And that works, don't get me wrong. You can definitely generate traffic that way. I'm not going to talk about any of that today. There's whole courses I'm running with a company called General Assembly that talk about digital marketing, and we get into a lot more of that. I'm going to talk about a very sort of specific subset of that. Sort of following on, quite inspired by the remarks of Erica about what you can do for free, right? Cheap. Now, social marketing isn't free. Like there's a serious time commitment involved in this, right? Being social is something that we all enjoy, but we know that to connect with somebody, you need to invest some time in connecting with that person. And so if you try to scale that and connect with lots and lots and lots of people, it eats up a lot of your time, right? So there's limits to how much we can actually do in social. There's a cost to it in time. All right, so this picture shows it on purpose, right? That social marketing is much like a cocktail party, right? It's a place where people have a conversation, right? They listen and talk to each other. And that's very different from mass marketing, right? Where we tend to just shout at each other, right? So the first rule of a great cocktail party or dinner party is be interesting, right? So how to be interesting? Well, you could do a whole course on how to be interesting. I recommend, though, as a shortcut right now, has anybody heard of Jessica Hagee? She's a Webby award-winning blogger. Blog's called Index. She's got this great book out. I met her at South by Southwest a couple weeks ago. She's got a book called How to Be Interesting. It's super funny. And actually, that's a little bit of the secret of being interesting, is sort of finding where there's a little twist in your business. Now, Jessica, and this is great, I think if you're all entrepreneurs and you're starting out there, your tendency is to want to be really serious in social media, right? Just the facts, promos, discounts, things like that. That is incredibly boring, right? So these are the sort of things that Jessica goes through in her book. She talks about going exploring and being curious. It's about sharing. It's about doing stuff. It's about ignoring scolds and not worrying about, people, what they say about you. It's about embracing your weirdness and trying and tinkering and having courage, following new paths. Like you can see where she's going with this, right? She's saying everyone is interesting, but you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to get out into things. And that is so much the case with taking your business into the social media realm of things as well, right? You've got to be a bit ballsy about it. You've got to get out there and have the courage to try and experiment and to often fall and fail. That's okay, and to do that very publicly. Social media, I believe in what's called mutually assured humiliation. That no matter how bad you think your mess up in real-time social web might be, I promise you somebody's done it 100 times before, thousands of times before, and they will continue to do so. And increasingly, we're all becoming so much more forgiving of each other's faux pas because, well, we've all been there. We all realize that we're all sort of a bit more human about the whole thing. So this is how Jessica gets us to think interesting, right? If you're, sitting in traffic, you should be sitting in traffic in a parade, right? If you're grounded, you should be getting grounded electrically. If you're in a cubicle, it should be on the space station. If you're going to bed early, it should be with someone amazing. If you're watching paint dry, it should be on a masterpiece, right? There's that little twist. This is what makes Jessica such a fabulous cartoonist. Her Venn diagrams are near genius. But this is this is what our businesses have to be as well. Now, this doesn't fit into your business model and your strategy. Like, where do you pen in be interesting? But you should be asking yourselves, where is that bit? Like, where's the interesting stuff? Because if I'm taking my business into the social web, I need it to be interesting. People need to want to talk about what we're doing. Like, what is that going to be? How are we going to do that? And you want to look for those little twists. You want to look for ways that you can inject a little life and humor and humanity into your business. More than anything, and thank goodness I'm talking to a room full of women, right now businesses need to rehumanize themselves. And the social web is all about putting people first, right? Putting caring back into the business world. So I've got this book out here in the front. It's all about you becoming a social leader. And especially if you are running your own businesses, we have to think about brand you. The tendency is to want to just put your brand out there, right, and hide behind it. Anybody here been to Disneyland or Ocean Park and met one of those big fuzzy, costumed characters, right? Imagine that's your brand. And somebody comes up, or maybe you're going to talk to one of these people in one of the fuzzy costumes. You come up and you tell them about the problems you've been having with customer service or a product or this or that. And the big fuzzy thing nods its head, and you think, oh, that's great, they were listening to me. And you walk away, and the next day you come back, and you talk to the big fuzzy suit again. But there's somebody else on the inside, maybe, right, who had no idea about the conversation you had with them the day before. That's the same when you come across social media profiles online that have got a brand on it rather than a person on it. You're talking to a brand that can be managed by any number of people in any number of places in the world who may or may not remember what you guys were talking about yesterday or really care that much about you. But if you put your own face on it and say, no, I'm the founder, I'm the owner, I'm the CEO, I care about what's going on, and I want to have a conversation with you about how we can make things better. And if you do this publicly and you can show to the whole world that you as a social leader care about your business, about your customers, about the marketplace that you're operating in, that is the best sort of marketing you can do. See, we all remember this idea of the village grocer. We sort of romanticize the idea. But there's something that we've lost when we look at the big brands that have put customer service reps, usually very poorly paid ones, on the front line, is that the person we're dealing with, it's very difficult to know if we can trust them. And of course the brands are like, well, you can trust us, you can trust the brand. But in the social web, we're looking to do more than that, right? We don't want to just trust the brand. We want to trust a person. We want to know that we can contact a person who can make real decisions in the company, not somebody who's like, yeah, I'll forward that on to my superiors and they'll try and get back to you, which of course never happens, right? So we need trust, and that is a big thing that's going to come from putting yourself, taking those risks to be interesting, get out there and be a part of the social web, not just your brand, but you, brand you. See, you can't be in a costume. It's not going to work, all right? Authority doesn't come from the brand costume, right? Richard Branson doesn't wear the Virgin brand as a costume, right? In fact, if anything, the Virgin brand is more an essence of him than he is wearing it to hide who he is. In fact, I'm sure there must be a ton of people at Virgin who are always like, oh my God, what did he say today? You should be like that with your company. Be you, be out there. Don't wear spandex if you don't have to, but be yourself. Be yourself, most importantly. It really, really matters. Now, we talk about marketing. It won't take you very long, if you're talking about marketing, to hear the word campaign come up. That's because we've been trained through the mass marketing eras, the Mad Men type guys, about building these campaigns that we're going to run from this date to that date, and during that time, we're going to execute on a whole bunch of different things, and these are the results we're going to measure off that. Don't get me wrong, I mean, those sort of tactics have worked and will continue to work, but they're very short term. There was did anybody see the Old Spice ad with the, I'm on a boat, I'm on a horse, the two tickets, the thing you really want to go to, right? That was an amazing campaign, and only what made it more amazing, in the social sphere, people responded to it and they would shoot custom videos for sort of influencers in the community and share those out in real time. And over the course of like a few weeks, they built up hundreds of thousands of new followers. But then the campaign ended. It never got passed along to anybody else to manage that community. They just dropped it. The agency stopped, was no longer paid. They walked away, and they left 100,000 customers in the lurch, just hanging there waiting for somebody else to talk to them. But there was nobody there, right? Social marketing is a 365-day relationship, right? It goes every day. In fact, hopefully, it's the lifetime value of your customer, right? You don't want to just have somebody with one-off purchases. You want somebody who you have a relationship with your business forevermore, and that they never ever go to a competitor, right? Like, you want to own them and keep them close to you. It is a lifelong relationship. Every customer is a marriage, right? That you're gonna have to manage your way through. That is not a campaign, right? A campaign might be to recruit a few new members into the community, or to expand a few things, or to create, we'll talk about a few more on-ramps to expand the business. But you've gotta treat social as an ongoing, never-ending affair. And it's not about campaigns anymore as well. I think we're still going to run analytics, we're still going to measure our results on things, but we have to think in terms of social experiments, right? I'm going to create something, I'm going to try and share something, I'm going to try and get people to share with each other something, and you want to try and set up these tests, right? Everything is a test in your social media of your ability to affect and influence, right, the way that people interact with each other. So it becomes social experiments on your friends, on your followers, on these likes. Of what do they like? How do they share? What matters to them? What do I get good responses back off of? These are the sort of things that you want to test, right? You don't want to test like your campaign, some sort of like novel idea that you have, that you love, right? What you want to test is this feedback, right? It's like it's a mental shift of going away from the idea of shout marketing, of like, here's my campaign slogan, and if I just yell it loud enough at enough people, I'm gonna get a response, right? It's this customer-centric, it's this reversible ideas of trying to look into people's eyes and say, what do you want? What do you need? How can I help you, right? And then try and just switch the thinking around, sort of custom tailor things about others. So think about how you're conducting experiments on your friends. So, content marketing. This is the idea that as we share more stuff on the web, right, that it becomes Googleable. Is that a word? Googleable? The more stuff you have out there, the more ways that people can find you. Now, that does require some, making sure that if you're writing blog posts, you're putting stuff up, that it's properly connected back to your website in a way that drives traffic and can be found by search engines and all of that. But the essential thing here is this idea of sharing social currency, right? Social currency is essentially, it begins at the level of gossip, right? Who here is unfamiliar with how gossip works? Good, just making sure. In fact, Professor Robin Dunbar, who much of his research is based my book off of, he talks about gossip as being a precondition to being human. That there's no way that you can like escape life on this planet without at some point being involved in just idle chit-chat about other people. It's just the way we work. We are social creatures who like to share what's going on. Now, gossip improves a little bit. It doesn't have to just be like, it doesn't have to be mean. It can move up to levels of news, right? And it can be, that news can be of very local importance, or it can be of global incidents or things that are going on that we're all worried and we're all caring about. It's going to be really hard to show up in the office and stand around the water cooler talking about something that you have no idea to talk about. So we all pay attention to the news, especially when we hear about big events, so that we can partake in the gossip about the news, the chit-chat, right? So what we have to realize is that if we're creating content online, that it's not the content that we're creating that matters, it's the conversations, it's the social currency exchanges that happen around our content that really matters. When we're doing content marketing, it doesn't have to be about my latest product and what we did and what's going on here. It can be much bigger news. It can be broader things. It can be things that, again, that are more interesting to your customers, that they're interested in, that they want to talk about, so that you can get a conversation going. That is the real trick to doing content marketing. It's finding things that people want to share in. Now, you've probably heard of these three terms, right, when people talk about content. Owned content, that's your original content that you cooked up or a digital agency made for you. Earned content, that's when you do something cool. A lot of people who work in PR create earned content when people get to talk about you, hopefully in a good way, about stuff that you've been doing and saying, hey, look at their new stuff, isn't it amazing? And then there's what I call borrowed content. And borrowed content is how you're going to survive on the social web. Who here has tried blogging? Who here kept blogging? Well done. For how long? You still doing it? Yeah, well done. Every day?
No, not every day.
No? It's hard to do every day, wouldn't it? Yeah. Do you, no? Not even that close. Look, they used to say everybody's got one great novel in them, and that may still be true. But I believe now we're like down to everybody's got one good blog post in them. And after that, you're like, yeah, look, I got a blog. And then you're like, ooh, man, a second article's going to be harder. Okay, well, I'll get through the second one. And the third one, you drag your feet on. Fourth one, it's like even longer. And it gets to a point where you can sort of sneak away from your own blog. And the web is littered with dead blogs like that have got a few great posts at the beginning, and then people just like couldn't figure out what to talk about anymore. And corporate blogs, your company blogs, your business blogs are going to be the same way. You're going to be, yay, we launched, look at us, hurrah. And then it's going to be like, okay, product update, and then new hire, joint venture deal, and then they start to get really like, pretty fast, right? So this is where we start to get into borrowed, right? Because this is what social is about. It's about talking about everything else that's going on. So there's a master narrative beyond just your business that your business sits in, that your business is a part of a bigger business community, of a series of similar businesses that operate in a similar space that are dealing with similar problems that the market has. You should be talking about those bigger issues. Timberland Shoes, the former CEO, used to talk about all the trekking he was doing, his work with Sierra Club. He was talking about the environment and being out in nature. He did not talk about shoes, ever, right? Because that was boring. All the other stuff he was talking about was big stuff, right? It was about principles, about bigger ideas, about stuff that he was passionate and believed in, and other people were passionate and believed in as well. And it got other people talking about issues that they thought were important, and getting together and organizing get-togethers for hikes and stuff, which is amazing if your business can start doing things like that, building community around ideas rather than just selling products. Then you know you've entered into the social web. So the borrowed stuff is all about watching the news around your business, all of the bigger stories that are going on, and blogging, writing about those, tweeting about those, putting those on your Facebook, pinning pictures of those stories on your Pinterest boards. And when you start tapping into the borrowed content, suddenly you've got tons and tons of things to be putting up every day. And it's not spam. It's not spam, it's interesting, right? This idea of, well, how often should I send out my newsletter? If your newsletter is boring, twice a month, once a year, it doesn't matter, it's boring and it's spam. If your newsletter is really hot and really exciting, you could send it every day, right? If people can't wait to see what it is. I mean, that's how the newspapers work, right? They are purveyors of interesting. They have to be, or they go out of business. So I'm not sure if anybody today has shown you a funnel yet. Can't talk about marketing without looking at a funnel. They're not really like beautiful things. But this is slightly blown up from the sort of funnels that you might see, which deal with just the conversion part of it. This one sort of looks at it more from a social aspect, and sort of stuff above the line here, right, is all the stuff that your borrowed social media is going to be working towards, right? So you're not just putting this stuff out there just, to get the conversation going and look cool, although there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you actually are trying to work yourself towards making some money here. And the idea here is by having more and more people sharing your stuff, you're going to build awareness. If you're prolifically good at sharing interesting stuff all the time, people will subscribe, they will follow, they will want to stay plugged in to get all of your updates. And they'll be passing them on, this good social currency. They see something super funny or super interesting from you, and they're like, ooh, that's going to go right on my Facebook page. All my friends are going to laugh, and I get like 100 comments. Yay for me! And they're going to keep coming back to you for more. Everybody here know who George Takei is? Seriously, nobody? Like, come on, hands up, George Takei fans. Okay, really? Who here is not on Facebook? All right, you shouldn't know who George Takei is. Well, you should if you like. He's the old Sulu on Star Trek, the old original generation one. He is currently the most influential person on Facebook, which could possibly make him the most influential person in the world, depending how you measure the word influence, which I have like a lot of problems with the way we measure it online. But George Takei currently has more people sharing and commenting on the stuff that he shares than anybody else in the entire world. Right? And it's not that George Takei himself is terribly funny. Everything he puts up is borrowed. People are sending him funny jokes, funny cat pictures, funny Star Wars pictures, funny just about anything. And he puts it up, and it literally, each one, tens if not hundreds of thousands of shares. Most of us will never ever get that sort of traction on Facebook for free. So he's hugely popular. He's got massive engagement. And it's not that George says or does much on top of it. He just became this cultural hub, a trusted source of funny. And there's no better social currency than sharing a laugh with some friends, right? Especially not on Facebook. It's in the culture of Facebook. So you want to try and find things that people will share, reasons they'll stay attached to you, right? This whole idea of engagement only comes when you're interested, when you're sharing stuff that people want to see, right? So this is listening marketing, not shout marketing. So what does that mean? When you're at the cocktail party, and you've sort of been standing alone for what feels like far too long, and you definitely don't want people noticing that you've been standing alone for far too long, and you're sort of moving a bit closer to a group of people, and you've sort of overheard that they're talking about something that you actually kind of know something about, which is great. And so you work your way in, and you wait, and you're listening for that moment where they say something, and you're like, bingo, I can add value. I can now say something that's going to be witty and charming and marvelous and make people laugh and inform them or do whatever that makes me suddenly an accepted part of that group, a valued member of that group. Right? And they're going to want to keep me in that conversation. Maybe they'll ask me some questions, and I ask them some. And we become better friends because we're exchanging social currency. This is what the social web is all about. You don't go on to Twitter and just shout at people. They won't follow you. They will block you. The same on Facebook, all of these places. If you just go in with your message, your branding, and just start pumping it in the face of people, it is like going to a cocktail party and walking around with a big sign of your brand on it and yelling at them, buy, buy, buy. Nobody wants that. You will be standing alone the rest of the night, I promise. Right? No more shout marketing in social media. Right? If you really want to do shout marketing, go and buy some display ads on the side of Facebook. They've got like a 0.5% conversion rate. You'll be great. Have fun. I mentioned this a bit earlier, helpful customer service equals great marketing, right? Any opportunity to be listening for problems. A man named Gary Vaynerchuk, you may know at Gary V on Twitter, he took over his mother and father's liquor store in New Jersey. He's turned it into a $6 million wine business. How did he do that? Because he, for the first year of business, sat up every night for 8 hours doing Twitter searches on wine terms, and anybody who was asking any question, like just posing it randomly out to Twitter, what sort of wine should I have with roast beef tonight? He'd just throw an answer out. He'd just hey, I really like this wine with that. And anytime anybody had any questions about anything, any varietals, anything, he would just give his best honest opinion of it. He also started doing a video series in which he actually ended up talking more about football than wine. It was winelibrary.tv. And he made it blue collar, down to earth, regular folks drinking wine, not snooty, nothing, really accessible, really easy to get to. He was putting up one of those, I think in the beginning it was every day. I think it went down to about once a week. But again, he was prolific. He was putting stuff out. He was being funny. He was being approachable. He was being customer service driven. He was answering people's questions. and his business took off, right? Because he cared. And he's written a great book recently called The Thank You Economy, where he's literally now, people buy wine from him, and he's got a big team of people now. And he'll just have a team member call up customers and just say, did you buy 2 cases of wine from us yesterday? And they go, yeah, I did. Like, oh, well, we just wanted to call and say thanks. And the customer like waiting for the sales pitch. That's all. Thanks very much. And people call him back. Did you just call to thank me? Like, that's it. Like, yeah, we're just really grateful that you're a customer of ours, and we hope to see you again soon. Amazing, the response rate from that. How many more people would be coming back? How much sooner to buy even more wine from him? Right? He's proving that this is a social world. The web has reintroduced human-to-human contact, right, into what used to be this idea of get the customer as far away from us as we possibly can keep them, right? We will deal with them at the till to bring it in. And in fact, even if we can get them to check out their own groceries, even better, right? Like, let's not have to talk to the customers. Customers are just full of problems and questions, and they're just trouble, right? And customer service is expensive. We should outsource it, like maybe to another continent somewhere where we can get really cheap labor to answer the phones and work through a flow chart. Like, we have done such a disservice to each other through our outsourcing of customer service. And this, hopefully, for those of you starting up new small businesses, using the social web are at a huge advantage over the big companies because you can rehumanize it. You can be one-to-one with your marketing, with your customer service, and you can do it out in the open so everybody can see how great you are, how much you really care. So then there's a bunch of stuff that actually does happen on your website that is social, right? So a lot of stuff I've been talking about now, that stuff kind of floats around out on other social media platforms. But your website itself is also a key component to your social marketing. And this comes right from how you design, not just the website, but how you kind of design the whole business around it. And again, as entrepreneurs, you've got a lot of control, especially when you're small, on how you pivot, how you redesign to make sure that you're running and driving a social business. So here's another funnel. This is what traffic to websites generally sort of look like, right? Lots of people land on your site and leave without doing anything. They tend not to stick around very long, especially if they've been attracted via advertising. Bounce rates tend to be quite horrible. Certain percent of that stick around for a bit longer and then exit. A few more stick around a bit longer, and maybe 1% or something like that converts. Now we can do a lot better than this if we employ some social tools. Because the truth is, when we're building relationships with people, you don't expect somebody to buy the first time they land on your website. I mean, wow, the level of trust you're going to have generated with a person. Like, any of you land on like a website someplace that you've never been to before and execute a purchase on the first time you've been there without sort of checking things out? Are you crazy? Like, you know in your heart that like that's just foolish behavior. You want to be a savvy consumer. You want to like sniff around. So people land and they bounce, they search, they come in and out of your site in many different ways, right? And what we want to try and do when we design our business, right, is to track all the various ins and outs, right, that builds that relationship. How can we, early on when somebody comes to the site, start to recognize who they are, right? And then you can do this with cookies and other things like that. But I recommend using other tools, things like the Google Plus sign-on, Facebook sign-in if you like Facebook, ways that you can get them into a social network. Sometimes you could ask them straight for an email and things, but people tend to balk at that. Your conversion rate will be lower. But a lot of these simple social media sign-on buttons make it really easy for you to connect with them again, to sort of bring them back into the fold. When next time they're on Facebook, things like that you can connect with people. And you want, while they're visiting your site, when you can get them back, find ways to the site. Have you ever heard about the idea of gamification? Right? Where you try and turn your website into something fun, something interesting, something that's a bit more game-like in the terms of how we show up on a site and we play our way through it. Whenever we do this, it's called the play principle, the numbers shoot up. There's some great public demonstrations of this that Volkswagen did. They took it was like an MTR type, like subway station. people steps leading up and an escalator leading up beside it. Everybody was taking the escalator. So overnight, they transformed the staircase into a piano keyboard. And every step on it played a note as you went up it. And they set up a camera to see what would happen. Again, playing social experiments on your friends, right? As you experiment and find fun and interesting ways for the people who are visiting your site to become more engaged with your brand, have more fun with it, find their way through it, right? That they will take the stairs to play the notes. They enjoy that. Human beings love having fun, right? They love doing things that are more interesting. And you'll find here, it's called engagement loops. There's lots of great resources out there that'll help you to think about how you can redesign your website towards doing that. But find ways that keeps them moving through your site, right? And that's going to help people, especially in this zone, sort of stay engaged with your site, or think, I'm going to come back, right? I've sort of developed some trust, I'll come back. We also want to tap into that social graph, right? So we know who they are. Part of the gamification maybe of getting them to like you on Facebook or become part of your community. And there's no reason you can't even own your own social network. You don't have to use somebody else's. And then you get them into what's called a viral loop, right? Which is to use tools that gamify, make it the conversion, them roping their friends in, right? So the idea here is you're not trying to get sales, you're trying to get them to tell all their friends on Facebook or all their friends on Twitter about you, right? So this is about creating advocacy even before you've got somebody who has bought anything from you. If they've been having fun and they say, oh, you should just come, right? The idea is to try and earlier on, before we get to this point where we're trying to convert people, right? Earlier up here, just get people bringing more and more people back into the site, right? Getting more and more people through that. We have to get this relationship going. We've got to have people touch the site several times, do several things with us. It can't ever just be this expectation that we're going to get them to convert straight up. None of us here have got the sort of power that Amazon has, right? None of us are in that league. We're going to have to try and work a lot harder. And so we move through the same cycle with a viral loop, right? You find ways that, you know, the loop is interesting. So a loop could be something as simple as what I was talking about, the sharing of social currency, right? Something funny that people find on their site that they can pass on and share to others, right? And so they go, oh, that's funny, that's really good. Oh, look, here's the share button. Like, how many sites don't have share buttons that should? One click, send that off to all of my friends. With that link, it goes out a way for all of those people's friends to come back to your site, right? And the idea then is to build on top of that all the sorts of on-ramps for all of people's friends, right? So maybe you do have another group of people that have already signed up for your newsletter, which should be fun and interesting, engaging. It's got cool stuff on it. And on that email, there should be a way for them to go, oh yeah, send this to your friend. Get those people back in. Get anybody who likes you passing on the social currency, talking about you, bringing stuff back in. Social sharing is about trying to create these loops and trying to find more ways to get people into the loops. All right, the final section I'm going to talk about, I'm not sure how am I doing on time here. Influence marketing, which is horribly misunderstood. And before anybody else gets to you and confuses you as to what it is, I'm going to set the record straight, okay? Yes, I have 100,000 followers on Twitter, which puts me into the category of being an influencer, which is, I mean, flattering. Forbes put me on their list. It's all nice. It works great for my marketing purposes. The truth is that I have a lot less power as an influencer than most people perceive. So this is the standard model that you're going to see when people like Salesforce come to your door and tell you that they've got this great social media tracking software that you should spend all like your money on because it's going to allow you to create these influencer maps, right? Influencer maps are so cool, right? You can find out who all the influencers are out there in the marketplace, and you can court them. And by courting them, they're going to talk of like really great things about your brand. It's going to give you all this great positive sentiment in the conversation rankings, which is going to increase the amount of traffic to your site and the amount of like purchases that people are going to make. Now there is a lot of like really big jumps of assumption in that logic. And again, this flows from a mass media thinking, And it doesn't work on the social web the way we think it does. Leveraging those, this is the logic, leveraging those with the largest following and reach among large social communities will drive the greatest brand awareness and eventually a purchase. And it does. I mean, it drives traffic like the way banner ads drive traffic. Like anything you do out there that raises awareness of you will help. But the idea here is that we're bootstrapping, right? Like we need the maximum results for the minimum amount of work, or like something like really positive that we've got long-term traction with. And so I say back to that customer-centric idea, right? Every single one of you, as a customer of various brands out there, you have influence and influences in your life that are far more important than me. Thank you for those of you who are following me, by the way. I know I'm not actually influencing any of your purchase decisions, because what we have to do is, again, put the customer at the center of the solar system, right? We have to look, if we're going to draw a map of any sort, we should map out all of the customers. And maybe these are people, again, we've got them partway down our funnel, but we haven't yet got them to buy something with us. And we need to push them over the edge a bit. So we start mapping the customers, not the influencers. You may find that the influencers show up on the map. They may be connected to the customers in some way, but people that are a lot closer to it, like family members and friends, those like one-to-one conversations that people have with closer contacts are far more influential in terms of convincing somebody to buy a new phone than, well, Smart Tone took me for dinner with the CEO. It was great. It was so much fun. I don't think I affected Smart Tone sales at all. But I have talked a whole number of my friends through one-to-one exchanges, not over Facebook, but like sitting around after work, having a beer, telling them, give up your iPhone, really, like move away, move to Android, long conversations, often heated. But that's the way like people are, right? One-to-one, it's more human. That's how we influence each other's decisions. Pulling them in my pocket, talking to them, and it wasn't because I was courted by the phone maker. I'm talking about what I believe in. The same way as when friends come to you for advice. Should I buy this? Shouldn't I buy this? If you have some expertise on it, you share them. You tell them, don't go there, girl. Oh, that's bad news. And this is how we have to map our customers as well. Who are they talking to? Who do they connect with? And we can see this. You'd be amazed, like the software that's out there, that's even things that are semi-free, like Twitalizer and things that allow you to sort of map connections of conversations people are having. You can do a lot of stuff without spending big money on the big social media monitoring tools. And there's a ton of free solutions out there that will let you do this, especially if you're not a big business. And you will be able to build, again, social experiments of fun, interesting virally sort of ways to get these people to buy the stuff that you're that you're selling, or not just to buy, but to become ultimately lifelong customers. Yes. So in this universe, the people, institutions, technologies, and communities that impact person's decisions orbit the customer, not the other way around. So I challenge you all, go out there, get supercharged, be social leaders, right? How do we do this? So first, become interesting influencers yourselves. You all are already interesting influencers. It's gotta like take that chance, get out there, start sharing the stuff that you care about. Borrowed content, doesn't have to be original. Start talking about stuff. Listening for ways in various conversations that you can jump in, add value, be helpful. You don't have to be like Gary Vee and spend 8 hours every night. Good God, I mean, the man that's no social life. But definitely spend some more time monitoring keywords, seeing stuff that comes up where you can have some opportunities to jump in and help people. Get really customer-centric, right? The social web is about people, right? It's a one-to-one marketing environment, right? It's not math. Situation analysis, right? You got to understand the context of everything that's going on the web, right? So much when we do analytics and monitoring, and you run your social experiment, you push stuff out there. If it was a day where a bomb went off at a marathon, it's going to be unusual, the responses you get on things, right? Also, it would be inappropriate on that day like that to do some sort of funny thing, right? Like, you gotta know what's going on. You gotta be aware of everything. And this, again, where are those customers? Like, where are they based? What are the communities they're attached to? We have to employ a lot more of our human feeling sort of skills, those human skills of knowing what is right and what is inappropriate for various situations. And then finally, you got to get creative, and every day be thinking about how you're creating tailored marketing experiments, little on-ramps, little ways to get people hooked into your site, ways to tweak and improve your site to get more people engaged in more ways. This is an ongoing effort, and the great thing is when you're small, you don't have to wait for approval to come back from New York. You can just decide to change the button from blue to green now, right? Like, there's a lot of things that you need to bring in-house. And again, if you're relying on designers and other people who manage all of your digital properties outside, one of the first things I'd be doing is trying to internalize those skills. Find the skills you need to take control of your digital properties, of your social presence. It is absolutely a key skill. Just as 15, 20 years ago, if you needed to be able to use a computer or you weren't going to get a job. Like, we just know this now, right? Like, if you were to have somebody show up and they say, no, I don't know how to use a computer, I can't do email, I'm sorry, I can't hire you, right? You're just unemployable. And we are very quickly going this direction. As business leaders, these aren't like optional skill sets, right? This is the new, I know how to do email. Say, I know how to manage my social and digital presence online. I know how to be a social leader. Which brings us to this. Yes, me, Forbes Top 50 Social Media Power Influencer. Yay, 2 years in a row. I have a book. Please, I got a whole bunch of them. I'm selling them today. I'm happy to sign them. It's how I afford to be able to come and spend time, hopefully motivating people like you to do great and cool things out there. So please, come up, get a book, and hopefully we can carry on this conversation on how we can all be social leaders and build cool social businesses. Thank you. We got a bit of time for questions. I'm not sure where we are with the time. I haven't seen anybody showing me any signs, so it must be a good thing. Or that, or I was just blindly ignoring them, which is possible.
Hi. Other than Caterpillar, which other corporate businesses have had success through platforms like Facebook and Twitter?
Other than Caterpillar?
Yeah.
You were thinking Timberland, was that the one I meant?
Sorry, Timberland.
Yeah. Well, I think Caterpillar might as well, I don't know. We talk more. Lots of brands, lots of big brands have success. But what I'd like you to sort of look for, though, are places where there are brand leaders, right? People who the CEO, the owner, the top banana at the companies spend a tremendous amount of time online. Richard Branson, who I mentioned earlier, he's obviously a great brand example. He's out there. Arianna Huffington, she lives on the web. You can talk and see her doing stuff all the time. Sheryl Sandberg, she's out there talking about stuff about Facebook all the time. She's great, especially for those women entrepreneurs who want to look for somebody who's very cool in tech, very like cutting edge social media. There are plenty of them out there. And the trick is, to try and find the places where the social leader isn't buried by the brand. Scott Monty, he's at Ford. He's not Scott Monty at Ford on Twitter, like, or _ Ford or something. He's just at Scott Monty. And you go to his page and you know he's Ford because it's got Ford branding. He is like the granddaddy, godfather of how to be a brand individual, right? Somebody who's working for a big brand, but definitely a brand within that brand. And I think we need to think of ourselves in these sort of roles where we're part of a theater company now, right? And when a theater company comes to town, anybody see Richard III when Kevin Spacey was in town with it? It was awesome. I mean, I've seen Shakespeare plays, but put Kevin Spacey in it, and oh wow, does it go up a whole notch. Your businesses are the same way, right? You can just be doing Shakespeare in the Park, or you can be doing Shakespeare in the Park with a famous, super awesome actor on stage with your theater company. And that's where the social leaders come, right? These brand individuals online who have got their own audiences, who've got their own fans, their own friends, and they bring those people, that influence, into work with them.
But do you think it's suitable for all businesses?
No, I mean, it's all case by case. But I mean, generally, hiding behind your brand won't do you as much good. Basics, though, If you want to do something where you monitor, say, Twitter. Twitter's a great one that most people here underutilize. You can just use like TweetDeck or Hootsuite, both of which have got free bits where you can just set up search columns. If you've got an Android phone, there's one called Plume. They all work the same way, where if you can set a second monitor on your desk, I know that seems like crazy for some of you, but really, like if you want to get good at doing social media monitoring, you end up with this NASA control panel of screens. But if you put a second screen aside, I've got TweetDeck running beside me all the time. Every column in there has got various keywords or hashtags, which I switch around and change depending on what I'm researching, what I'm looking at, which clients I'm working for, and I just monitor various keywords. But what it means, I don't have to read it all, because you can't read all of Twitter, right? It's too much. But when you've got a chance and you can sort of look over at what's sort of going past, right? And you can see stuff that gets repeated very quickly, the patterns of what's hot, ooh, what's that? And you can click on it, you can open, you can say, ooh, well, here's an interesting link. It's relative to the sort of stuff that I'm talking about. Lots of people are sharing it. This is good social currency. I should reshare it. I should figure out who the person who originated was, make sure I put that little RT in their name at the front of it, so hopefully they'll go, ooh, who's this person? She's never retweeted me before. And she can go, oh my goodness, I didn't know you had this great business. And they become this new friend of yours, right? So this is how you can use a tool like that in a very sort of simple sort of way, without spending any money. Like all that, like building those columns, setting up that stuff, completely free. Very basic sort of thing. You can do that with search.twitter.com as well without installing anything. But it's nice to have the columns. You can sort of scan it and see more quick. So start again. Hootsuite, that Vancouver-based company, and suite, like office suite, like hotel suite, and TweetDeck, which is owned by Twitter. There are bigger ones as well that can track more than just one platform at a time. The question was, how much should we rely on bloggers to promote us? Now, this really comes down to the relationship that you have with the blogger. Now, is the blogger, are you trying to do this sort of thing where I'm courting them because they've got all these readers, and if I get to them, then everybody's going to come rushing to my door? Tell you what, if you're going to buy them off, just do it the right way. Buy ads on their site. Bloggers need to eat too, right? They're essentially mini newspapers. If they've got a big enough readership, they'll be desperate to sell some ad space. Like literally, they will love you for the ad space alone. Much better than junkets are trying to trick them in. They have got so many people trying to woo them in so many ways. If you find that there's a really great blog and you think that their traffic would be great showing up on your site, okay, you don't even have to go. Display ads are really kind of crass. I mean, when was the last time anybody clicked on a display ad, right? I mean, they're terrified. I mean, like, you almost like naturally blank them. There's this other idea where you can do, which is becoming repopularized. It's an old idea. Native advertising called natural advertising. So it's, again, bloggers tend not to have resources to be able to hire a writer to dive deep into a topic, right? And chances are they're working on pretty shoestring budgets as it is. But if you said, you know what, I don't want you to do an advertorial, I don't want you to write about us, but what we really care about is again, it's this, nature walk that's going to get destroyed or bulldozed or something. I personally really care about it, and I'd love if you guys could write some stories. How about we sponsor you to send some reporters out and cover, this story and write like deeper articles. And then at the top of it, you just run an ad, this story brought to you by this brand, or an ongoing series of things brought to you by the brand. And that's actually an old thing. You used to see it in your television in the 70s and 80s. So you're like, program tonight brought to you by General Mills, and it was a more common sort of way to sort of promote things like that, the whole thing, rather than just buying ad space that people ignored. So there's ways to go about courting bloggers that isn't about trying to invite them to get to dinner and tweet about you. There's ways that if you're going to get on the site to go that way. The other way, of course, is just just befriend them, like the old-fashioned way. And if they really do love what you do and your products and everything, they'll write about you. But yeah, don't like impugn their integrity in any way. The question is SEO optimization techniques. Okay, First rule, you can't cheat the Google, right? Or not for long, they will adjust the algorithm and beat you down, right? So any sort of black hat crazy ideas you have, everybody said to you, oh, if you do this, you do that, you're gonna get more Google juice and show up higher. Promise you, there's some really great things you can do though. If you are setting a blog up on your site, Google authorship, right? It's, if you've got a Google Plus account, you should all get a Google Plus account if you don't. You can connect Google Plus with the authorship, Google authorship, and tell it, basically you take a little piece of code from authorship and you put it on your blog, and it then recognizes that the recognized Google Plus profile is connected to that. So anytime that one of your blog posts shows up in a search results, it drops your Google Plus profile picture right next to it. Click-throughs on blog posts that have got a picture beside it are like 200% better than click-throughs without it, right? So little tricks like that about connecting authorship will improve your Google juice, but also just the more you get shared. So if you create lots of interesting stuff and lots of people share you on Twitter and on Facebook and on G+, the more stuff you get out and the more people that are sharing it, the higher you rise in Google, right? So be interesting is your greatest SEO. But that said, make sure that if you're writing blog posts that you've got, that the URL and headlines and everything sort of checks out. Like there's, depending what CMS software you're using, there's some pretty good plugins, usually on the back end, that you can go through and make sure that everything that's filled out, all the metadata, is the way that Google likes it. It's not cheating, it's just making sure that it's organized and clean and proper. And that's useful stuff as well. But I mean, the real secret sauce though, the real like, how do I get up there? It all comes from being interesting.
I see a lot of companies out there when talking about the content of what you're putting on your social media, using things such as their corporate social responsibility activities or their sustainability things, and out talking about that more and more, but then after that coming with, and you should buy our product now. So what advice would you have for companies that are looking into using sustainability or corporate social responsibility as a content for their social media, or starting with that?
Yeah, CSR and social are such a great idea to connect together. Most CSR decisions are made because the company thinks, oh, like show of hands around the boardroom table, what charity should we get behind? Which is kind of mad when you think about like all this connection with all of this community, all of our customers that are buying from us. Why don't we ask them what we should get involved in? And not just ask them, let's take our CSR money back to our community, and instead of just pumping money into something and getting a few of our employees out to plant a tree or something, how do we use that money to organize activities, to get both our customers and our employees actually out doing stuff together that's real? And this goes from, am I doing CSR as a publicity stunt to connect me to more sales, or am I doing CSR because it's going to give back to the community in a way that's going to sustain lifelong relationships? And I think it's a huge opportunity to get your customers involved in what CSR is. Do the activities that your customers think that you should be involved in doing. Go out, help them out with stuff. Like, use the money in a way that benefits the world, but also makes your customers happy. There's no better way to get them to buy more stuff from you than have them in love with you.
How much further do you think social media has to go?
All right, everything goes through these cycles, right? So where like it gets like overhyped, right? And then you get this like trough of disillusionment that sort of comes after it. And I think there's a lot of us in the trough of disillusionment sort of phase now, right? That we were promising, social media was going to do all these things, but the promise of it was a lot of this mass media thinking. So I think we're actually just starting sort of the second wave of social media, which again is starting to look at this as a one-to-one tool, looking at this as a much more of a social community building tool, a thing that deals with people in small Dunbar number groups of less than 150 people, and that Lady Gaga and her 20 million Twitter followers doesn't mean anything, right? The big of social media is very quickly becoming irrelevant, and where we're going with it is some people are already calling it Instead of calling it social media, they're calling it human media. I don't even think the word media is the problem. Like, I think media confuses us. I think social business, right? We're thinking about, this isn't just marketing, communications. This is basic strategy of how we're connecting ourselves to our customers and to each other. And the idea of the human in there rather than social might be an important step away as well, so that we realize it doesn't matter whether you're using Facebook or Twitter or G+. These things may come and go, and they will. They rise and fall. But what we've discovered through this new era of the web is that we can use our computers to find and connect to each other in ways that we've never had in human history before, unprecedented ways. And we can self-organize, we can do amazing things, and I think we are just getting started on that, just getting started.